Welcome to the seventh episode of the Nesting Eagles podcast. We are coordinators for the Southern Wisconsin Bird Alliance, Bald Eagle Nest Watch, and citizen scientists. I'm Drew with my co-host Beth. Beth, how are you today?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah. Yeah. Any storms in Wisconsin? I know you guys have gotten some more.
Yeah. We have a new tree leaning with a nest with incubating eagles in it. So here's hoping we don't have another big one before fledging happens. So we
Yeah.
have two significantly leaning trees now.
Yeah, and let's just give a brief update on how we're doing for the watch. My southern group is actually looking really well. No signs of avian influenza. So far, so good.
Yeah.
So far, I'd say it's a normal year. We've had a couple inactives, a couple failures, mostly due to those storms, those weird storms. But nothing alarming so far. Anything in your area, Beth, that
No, we have of our 38 nests, two have gone inactive. They were never used. They were never occupied. Those eagles did not return. In both cases, those nests have been unoccupied now for 2 years. And of the remainder, we had three that one fell, two lost their male eagles. So we're not sure what happened to those eagles, whether or not that's avian flu or not. Um, and then we have what did I tell you? We had 25 that are incubating and six that are brooding, and now that has changed because yesterday on my nest visit, two of my nests are now brooding, and I saw the chicks. So,
Yep.
but we'll get more into that later.
Yeah, we'll show
This
some
is a great year
pictures.
for us.
Yep. Yeah, of
I
our
think if you remember, last year we had like six nests playing house, so they never produced young, and now it seems like they're down to serious action, and we only have one that appears to be playing house at this time.
Yeah, and we'll get into playing house. That'll actually be one of our vocabulary terms. But first, let's go with review the question that you asked. And what was the question? Just for people
What
who,
are the five main groups of raptors? Can you name them?
yes. So,
And we
well,
did have our fan, our fan Kevin responded
yeah,
right away
thank
with
you,
the
Kevin.
answer, and got it right, and so did our friend Gina. Um, and so the answer is bald eagle, hawk, falcon, owl, and vulture.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
you could actually say eagle because there are golden eagles in Wisconsin too. So, or go
it's a good
through.
point.
So,
It's a good point.
yeah. And we thought of a couple other ones if we kind of branch it out to more like the whole US. Or Osprey's kind of one that you could put on there as well. Osprey they're an interesting bird in that they're kind of in their own family. And then we thought of condors too, like California condors could be put in that raptor category as well if you're out west in that area. So good question, and we'll continue to do that. I think that's we're gonna try to come in and answer those questions. We're gonna try to engage you guys and get
Mhm.
more answers and
We need
really
more people to join Kevin and Gina in
yeah.
answering questions on our
Yeah, we
podcast.
appreciate it. And again, if you want to contact us, you can do it on the Facebook page. You can comment here on YouTube. And also, Nesting Eagles Podcast at gmail.com is our contact information. So, if you like what we're doing, obviously, like those, send comments, and also subscribe. We're trying to build up our base, and you'll get notified every time we send out a new podcast on YouTube. So,
And before we head on, Drew, let's just give a shout out to all the Nest Cam operators, the organizations that have funded them, who run them, who comment on them, who go up there and do service changes to them, because we are screen saving a lot of the photos from those nests, and we just want to say how much we appreciate all of them for the hard work that they do because I don't know how some of those people are even sleeping.
Yeah, and we have in the past a little background. We have thought about doing an S cam, and we'll get into that in a future podcast about how involved that is. So it's not an easy process. It's expensive process, and we'll talk about that in an additional podcast. So look forward to that one in the future about talking about the ins and outs of setting up a podcast, setting up a Nest Cam, and it's not easy. Believe me, we looked into it. It's not an easy process. So yeah, thanks to all that are involved in the Nest Cam community, running it, commenting on it, and all the people that are watching it because it's very interesting and it gives us a lot of insights that we can't see from our perspective. Usually 300 to 500 feet out with a spotting scope or binoculars or a long range camera. So
Yeah,
it's good
I
to
had a 500 millimeter camera yesterday with a two-time extender.
yeah
And so when you see my pictures in here, I can take better pictures, but
yeah
not from that distance
yeah
on a windy day.
sure. Yeah. All right. And let's do the vocabulary, I guess, words of the day, technically. I will actually do a little mini short about this. So keep an eye out for that this week. But it's a term, I think I coined it because I don't know of anybody else that uses this, but
I've not heard anybody
yeah.
else use it.
It's playing house, and playing house is a term that I use when eagles kind of get to one point, but just don't lay eggs. And I'll go into a little more in depth on the mini pod or mini video about what that means. But it's a term that we use a lot, and we see it a lot. We've collected a lot of data on that site. I don't think I can't remember. Can you think of any Eagle cams that are been doing that? I don't think so. They usually
I
try to get
wasn't
more
really
established
paying a
pairs.
lot of close attention to Eagle Cams really until this year in talking about the podcast. Um, I flit in and out on them, but no, I have not. Well, the Hanover nest, I think,
Yeah,
in Pennsylvania has since the main pair were run off.
yeah,
There has been some plain house, but there have been no egg laying.
yeah. Okay, well, we'll go into more depth on that video, but that's our term of our words of the week, vocabulary words of the week. Okay, let's dive into what we're seeing at some of the eel cams and kind of look at them, analyze them a little more. Probably the most interesting one right now is still that Fort Vrain Colorado nest. It's got the four eggs. Two of them have hatched, as you can see in this picture. And
One right after the other. I mean,
yeah,
boom, boom.
so it'll be interesting. This is kind of one thing, and we'll get into this in another podcast. Our nest in the Fox Valley that had four fledge, super rare, and that's also a trio nest as well. So that's a real interesting one. But we'll see if maybe it's more common than we know that there's four eggs laid, but they just don't hatch. So we're fingers crossed that all four hatch because I think it'll be an interesting um, process to watch if we get all four eaglets being raised and hopefully fledging. So that'll be an interesting project or interesting view on that one. Um,
I'm very excited about this one, too, just to see what does happen here. And, as you recall, it was just like 2 weeks ago that I think the Decorah nest had a pip and the chick was hatching, and after 4 days it expired. And so when you saw this happen and it happened so quickly and efficiently, and the second one came out too, it's like, oh, that those are healthy chicks,
yeah.
and the robust way they came out, is a good sign for their future.
Yeah, and we'll see. Again, we're not sure if all four are going to hatch, but
Right.
we're hopeful. And it'll be a good one to keep an eye on for that process. The second one is, of course, our Jackie and Shadow. Um, these, I've seen a lot of comments on that nest that they're growing so quickly, and that's one of the characteristics of that we see with bald eagles. They just grow enormous. You think about it. They when they initially hatch, they're about 2 ounces, and a full size female before eaglet before she's about to fledge is up can be up to around 12 pounds, mostly in the northern eagles. So that's quite a jump. I've used this at many talks and everything. It's like if you equated that to human, so basically what they go from 2 ounces to 12 pounds in about 8 weeks, 8 or 9 weeks. If you change that to a human baby in that process, you'd have over a 700-pound baby at 8 weeks old. So just to give you an idea of how much they grow and how rapidly they add and grow. And we see it from week to week. When you're monitoring a nest, you go 1 week and it's a little fuzzball, and they're just rapidly growing as you go through the season. So it's a fun process to watch.
Well,
So
I noticed
everything,
the moderators call them at this stage that they have clown feet and the
yeah.
awkwardness of them, and at 2 weeks old they're really into their awkward teen years
Yeah.
is how it looks to me.
Yeah, and as you say, you can see in the picture, they are out of that fluffy down that we see, and they're getting that more gray, and that's a process, and it's fun to watch, and it's good to see. As you can see in the talons right there, they're getting well fed, so everything's going great. So hopefully, it continues to go well at that nest, especially with the storm and the loss of that one eaglet due to the storm. So it's good to see them doing well in that process. And let's see, and we're gonna go here. This is Bella and Scout
Right.
from the West Virginia nest, and they recently hatched, and as you can see, these are the little guys that we call fuzzballs, and very young.
This is
And
their cute phase.
yeah. And what's going on at that one, Beth? I know you keep a closer eye than I do at that nest.
I am just very proud of Scout because he had the tragedy last year of consuming his offspring, not knowing the difference of whether or not they were um, a food source for him or that they were his eaglets, and he did not recognize them as his offspring. And this year, he's just doing a great job. He has come light years from last year and is very attentive to his eaglets. And I think we mentioned it briefly once before, but eagles will sometimes bring other chicks from nests that they exploit back to their nest. And if they're alive when they come in, and that bird, like there's been cases of red-tailed hawks turns around and looks up at the eagle and opens its beak and makes the crying noise for food, they start feeding it. So it's very interesting the psychology of what goes on between eagles and raptor chicks that they bring back to their nest. But um, the nest is doing great.
Yeah, you get that instinct to do one thing and then their experience on top of that to what to do. So, yeah, it looks like, he's learned his lesson the hard way by eating his chicks. But yeah, it's good to see that this nest is doing well. They're thriving. There's it's a process. It's I have 3 kids, and I look back on what I did to my first one. It's a learning process and everything, and it's a learning process for the Eagles as well. And then our last one, our interesting nest, is the Gabby and Beau nest with Bodie and the Juvie that's been added, the fledgling that came into the nest. Um, it's
Officially named Juvie.
Yep.
So, but a family portrait here. This
Yep.
is a new family. One of the eaglets is not their biological offspring yet. They are raising it, and hats off to them because Gabby and Beau are doing a wonderful thing. That eaglet may have been picked up by this time, starving on the ground and going into rehab, and instead, if it was still alive, even, and instead it is flourishing in this nest, and it has a buddy in Bodie, where they're learning, and it's a symbiotic relationship. It's helpful to both of them.
Yeah, and I've noticed that just from my experience, when you have nests that have multiples in it, they do tend to hang out after fledging, and then we have seen some data that they do once once the adults stop feeding them. It's usually about an 8 week process that the adults continue to feed their fledglings, and eventually they'll basically kick them out of the house, and they have to go on their own. But a lot of times, the if there are twos or multiples, a lot of times they stick together well after that process. Well, so yeah, they kind of have a buddy, I guess, to start that new process of learning how to be eagles. And that first year is always tough. So if you do have a partner, it's a little bit easier in that process. So good to see them doing well as well. And really interesting. I'm looking into there's actually one. Possibly. I got to still do a little bit more research that it might have happened in our program within the last few years, but we're still researching that, and we'll give you updates once we figure out the whole story. It's a process, and as you know, these nests do not have nest cams that we run, and it's usually a couple weeks or a couple visits a week, and it's kind of putting all the pieces together and trying to figure out did this occur, or was this something else? So look for that in the future. And on that note, what do we have here, Beth? Because
Well, this is my really horrible photo. So again, I'm at 1,000 millimeters, basically taking this photo yesterday, which was not a crystal clear day, but this is actually through tree branches, which have fuzzed out. And I end up having to take these pictures manually because it's so far off in the future, in the distance. And the only way I know, I cannot drive up and tell if there's an eagle in the nest unless it's sunny and it's hitting the head of the adult eagle. That white spot then tells me there's somebody in the nest. But I sat there for a while yesterday, and the way she's looking down is indicative of how we can tell if chicks have hatched. So these nest cameras are great because you see everything going on. For us watching the several, how many nests do we have altogether?
um, I think it's over 200. I think it might be pushing 300 now.
So
But
we have
yeah,
nest watchers that sit in their vehicle or sit outside with a scope at the required U.S. Fish and Wildlife distance from the nest. In this case, I am almost a third of a mile away from the nest. And she's looking down. She's sitting up higher in the nest. So this was the first time that I could say I believe she was on eaglets. And then if you think of this as you don't see it in this frame, and then go to the next one, now you see it.
yeah,
So if you look down right under her wing edge, yeah, there we go. That the one to the right is the end of a stick, but the one to the left is an eaglet.
yeah.
And this is how we find out that we have chicks in the nest. So we have signs that we look for, like sitting up higher in the nest, like constantly looking down. Um, Feeding is a great one to know that you have eaglets in the nest, but sometimes we're there for an hour a week for our visit to document what's going on at the nest. And if you happen to miss a feeding, this is great because I have proof of at least one eaglet in that nest now. Terrible
Yeah.
picture, but that is an eaglet.
Yeah, it is, as you said, it's a tough process, and this is I'd say this is a good sized nest, but we definitely have ones that are even bigger. And if you get a situation where, I'll just use the mouse for instance. Some nests you see just the top of the head. They're just so deep, and it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while for the eaglets to grow large enough. Typically, we see them at 2 to 3 weeks. But some of the nests, it's just like they don't get a glimpse till later in the season just because the nest is so deep. So
If they stretch and just arch up, that's what I've caught because these eaglets are not probably this could be a week old. The other nest is not going to be a week old, but this nest is probably the fourth one that I'm aware of that they've had in the last 6 years. So
yeah.
these guys tended to always build sort of a cantilevering nest over a bluff.
Mhm.
And when you're cantilevered and you keep adding tonnage to it, with sticks every year, and you have a soaking rain like we often do in Wisconsin, it's just a matter of time before that
Yeah.
nest goes down. So this is a pair that now their nest is not cantilevered. This is the first time it hasn't been. So again, it's a sign to me that I suspect that there's been a change in the nest of um, who the adults are in it because of the different style of nest building.
Yeah, and yeah, there's definitely different styles. We'll kind of get on that. That'd be a good topic for to do a deep dive on another podcast as far as what Beth is all, is talking about that. And there's some clues that we use, and a lot of times we've spent a lot of time with these eagles, especially the adults, and we can definitely change. There's some behavior changes that we can see, or you know, as simple as their style of nest, their shape of their nest is a little bit different. That kind of clues us in that maybe at least one of the adults has changed. And with the nest cams, it's with the close-up view. A lot of times that you can see markings and different things that clues us in to say, okay, this is the same adults as last year. What we don't have that luxury, but there is a lot of indicators that we can see. And um, as far as behaviors and other things that we say, I think this is a different nest or a different eagle in the nest. So that's something that we have to clue in on, and it's takes some time to get that experience, but it's definitely something we can use with the data for the nest watch too.
There's preferred roosting trees, there's preferred copulation trees, there's preferred hunting trees. So they all have, like I always say, it's they have their favorite spots, and if their favorite spot changed, if you get a close enough look at that eagle, sometimes you can identify that it is then different. Usually they're younger ones coming in, which make it a lot easier, but yeah, they're creatures of habit just like we are.
And also like the nesting times too, like when the female actually lays her eggs. And they see that a lot at a lot of the nest cams. It's pretty consistent when they lay eggs year on and year in. So if you, for example, come to a nest that consistently an early nester, they're laying, let's say, for example, early February, they're usually off, and then all of a sudden they're laying in March, you're like, something might have changed here.
Mhm.
So they're pretty consistent in a lot of things, as Beth mentioned.
So that is a southern Wisconsin nest,
Yep.
the southeast section of Wisconsin.
And let me blow this up a little bit. This is something we're gonna do
Mm.
as well. But first we're gonna do what's the new question of the day or question of the week? Beth, would you have in mind?
Oh, to think of how I say this. Do bald eagles use their nest throughout the year? So that is the question.
And
Um,
there, just a little hint. There's not a set answer for that. So you can
well, yeah, no,
yeah,
but this is what's fun.
yeah,
So just throw out your answer to us,
yeah,
and we'll talk about um, what we know to be fact and what we, you know, do. Yeah, yeah. Originally, I was going with do they sleep in their nest year round, but that is, that is a misleading
yeah.
question, also. So,
Yeah, I think do they use their nest year round is a good one. So yeah. As I said, answer on email, comment here on YouTube, or send it on Facebook as well. We'll comment on the Facebook group. And what do we have here, Beth? This is exciting. I can't believe you got this shot. This is a really cool
well,
shot.
this is cropped, but
Yeah.
yeah, my husband and I went and were on a river taking photographs of eagles that were around. This was a couple weeks ago before we were everyone had moved further north to start nesting for their season, and this eagle came and landed in a tree right where I was standing, and so I was able to capture a few pictures. And that poor little fish just kind of looks like dope, it's oh,
Yeah,
it's
so
kind of
send your
cool.
send your captions into this.
Yeah. Caption this photo.
Yes, yeah, I think
Um,
it's it's
but yeah, and the thing that was interesting too about this is this eagle kept flipping the fish up in the air, and it kind of reminded me of how orcas or seals will sometimes,
yeah,
play with their food. But yeah, he gave me some great photos because he kept doing a similar thing repeatedly. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased I captured it, and it was hard for me not to yell out, "Oh my God, can you believe it?" It just
yeah,
landed right next to me, and it's like, wow.
yeah,
Um, but it just happened to be a beautiful day too, so I just love the blue sky behind it and the sort of whitish birch looking tree, and
yeah,
um the colors are vibrant, which is sad for the little fish, but you know raptors are
yeah.
it this is what they do.
Yeah, yeah, very cool shot. Once in a lifetime shot. So, yeah, as we said too, we'd love to share other people's photography. Mostly, we've been sharing Beth's and Ken's. And if you have some great shots like this one that you got captured, send them along. Email them to us at the Nesting Eagles podcast at gmail.com. Or you can also, direct message us or, um, send it in the comments as well. So we'd love to see these. We'd love to, we can use viewers' pictures to highlight stuff, and as well as maybe do a caption as well, like this one. So this is a really cool shot, and
Way better than those little eaglet popping up pictures, but yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
And one thing we should talk about too, Drew, before we get too close to closing out here is um, this Kitsatchie nest where unfortunately the one eaglet, both eaglets were starving, and then the older eaglet um, attacked the second hatched eaglet, and they don't know this for sure. They're going to be investigating it on Monday, but they suspect that someone is putting food out in the area for the eagles to bring back to the nest. And and I understand that. It's a compassionate thing to do and to want to do. But it isn't a good idea. It's not the same as putting out sunflower at your feeders at your outside nest. Those adults need to learn parenting for one, and unfortunately, the downside of that can be is that your eaglets don't make it through their nesting season, and that sounds like a brutal and harsh thing, but those adults need to learn how to care for their young, and and that eaglet also needs to be encouraged to fledge and start hunting and finding its own food. So if we interfere a lot in that family dynamic, that can often lead to problems. Um, and then that leads to eagles, potentially dying or starving to death, and then they have to go into permanent care because they've learned bad habits, and they start to depend on that food that people are giving them, and that's just not a good idea. And once again, where I volunteer as a raptor handler, that is the case of one of the eagles that we have there, is that it was fed by fishermen, and it didn't develop any hunting skills and couldn't care for itself. So, and it identified people as that source of food, which is then, you can't be released. So even though it's kind-hearted and you don't want to watch that eaglet starve to death, it is the dynamics of that family, and we're privileged to watch it on a nest cam. Uh, but it is that family's responsibility to raise that eaglet and to learn lessons the hard way if they need to be learned the hard way.
Yeah, for sure. Eagles are bald eagles are scavengers as well. So that does help them, and it definitely has helped them in a number of ways to flourish, but it also can be a problem as well if you are feeding them. And I always use the example of the ice fishermen during the winter, throwing out pieces or whatever, thinking, "Oh yeah, I'm just helping those eagles in that really low temperature time." But if you're not going to be there throughout feeding them, it's going to be a problem for them because in a lot of cases in these areas that are frozen over, these lakes that are frozen over, where ice fishermen with those tools and being able to drill and get fish that way, the eagles should be moving on to open water and finding a better place to catch prey. And if they're not, in a lot of cases, they might starve to death or just not make it because they think, "Oh, I have this source of food," when they just don't actually have that. So that's a problem. It's a problem at Nest too. We don't just don't do that. It's a bad thing to do.
I think
They
one of
need to learn.
one of my
Yeah.
best examples was a Nest camera 2 years ago, the Harriet camera in Florida, where Harriet unfortunately swallowed a hook from a fishing line, and that is pretty much a definitive death sentence, and especially lead, because she would have been lead poisoned if it was lead, and she had two eaglets in the nest, and they were really young, and the male there fended off a lot of other eagles and was only feeding its firstborn chick.
Yeah.
And that secondborn chick, you could see it just like, where is my food? And that bird and a little gray fuzzball learned to snatch food, and was standing on food and pulling pieces of fish apart, where its older sibling, who was being fed, couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So it learned very quickly how to take care of itself. And I often say that eaglet is doing great wherever it is today, because it learned the hard way of survival and chose to live.
Yeah.
So I always, that's a saying of mine. Usually, when I plant something in the ground, I then walk away and tell it to choose to live. But in the case of this eaglet, I mean, you could just see it chose to survive and to do what it could to feed itself, and it made it a stronger bird.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So um hopefully they get figure out what's going on there, and as I said, just don't
And
do it.
technically,
Yeah,
that's against the law too, to feed
yeah,
them.
it is. Yeah. It's just not a good thing to do. Excuse me.
As hard as it is to watch, it is
Yeah.
not a good thing to do. Um,
Yeah, and it gets into a lot of things, and we'll talk about that further as far as EO cams. People want to intervene, and we'll talk about that in a future episode. It's something we've had to do as far as intervening, and there is really a code to that, and what when to intervene and when not to. It's definitely a excuse me a process that you gotta take in all the facts and figure out should we intervene or should we just leave it to nature in those situations. So, all right. Anything else, Beth, that we can think of?
no, I'm just excited to figure out what's going on at my third nest.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's a process. And also on my side, I finally found a few nests in Washington, so I'm excited to get back out there next week and see what's going on. So hopefully I'll have some updates on my side as well. But kind of using the Nest cams as I don't know, to keep my
supplement.
yeah, keep something going, as far as nest watching. So, but thanks
You're
again.
missing
And
sitting out in the freezing cold, Drew, and
yeah,
getting
yeah.
yoga
No,
pond.
I miss it. I do. The spring is definitely better, and this is my favorite time once you get to start and it starts to warm up and you're seeing the migrants and everything. So that's
Well, the
always fun.
trees are budding, but
Yeah.
we're getting snow Monday. So a lot of snowfall in northern Wisconsin.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
nice
tons.
too. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yep. All right. Well, as I said before, subscribe to the channel, like, comments. Also, if you want to contact us with photos, questions, or whatever, nesting eagles podcast at gmail.com. And with
And
that,
Kevin and Gina, send us your pictures and ask us more questions, please.
yes, yeah, we're here.
And tell your friends.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thanks everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Bye bye.